Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar with Becky Peters on Key Stage 3 computing. We're going to have a great introduction here of looking at how creative computing can be at Key Stage 3. I'm Carol. I'm the Outreach Manager for the Northwest, looking after the management of the communities in conjunction with the National Centre for Computing Education along with CAS. As you know, this is part of the virtual showcase that's been running over 2 weeks. We're coming towards the tail end of this now. Lots of exciting things going on. A little bit of housekeeping for you if you've not attended any of the webinars so far. You've got a toolbar where you can ask questions. I'll be prompting Becky when there's any questions in there, so we'll be able to answer them as we go. We've got quite a number of people on this morning, so if we don't get to everybody's answers, we'll be putting in a forum post, so we'll be able to see anything that we've not managed to cover. On the right hand side, if you're on a desktop device, you'll see an orange arrow. You can expand or minimize the toolbar there. If you're on a mobile device, you'll just see that your tools are across the top of the screen. The webinar notes are in the section of handouts, so you'll see Becky's kindly shared those as a PDF. So help yourselves to those as well. They'll also be made available along with this recording on the CAS website from the July the 13th when we get everything around together. If you are using social media, and we hope that you are, the hashtag is hashtag CAS Virtual 20. Get some photographs in there, share what you're doing, and hopefully you'll enjoy, I'm sure you will enjoy this session being delivered by Becky today. So feel free to pop in questions or comments into the question bar. I'm going to take off my webcam, so you'll just have Becky, but I'll be monitoring the questions as well. Thanks for joining us, and I'll hand it to Becky.
Thanks, Carol. So hi everyone, thanks for joining us this morning. As Carol said, my name's Becky Peters and I work for the National Centre for Computing Education, which I'm sure the majority of you are aware of. So the session that I'm running today is a taster session from one of the NCCE courses, which is Creative Computing for Key Stage 3. Now, the first thing I'm going to say is I'm very sorry. This session was originally intended to be delivered in person at the Manchester Showcase. I still want to do it now because it's really important, but it does work better in a face-to-face scenario where we can have discussions and things, whereas doing it as a webinar, it doesn't work quite as well. So I do apologise for that. This course is part of the pedagogical kind of side of the CPD that the National Centre offers. So for those of you who have done the Accelerator programme, this is one of the pedagogical courses that you can do afterwards, working towards your secondary certificate. So if you're interested in doing the full course following this taster session, then do have a look at teachcomputing.org and have a look for any sessions that are running on this. So in this session, we're going to be considering the essential topics that all students need to cover in Key Stage 3 and how to resource your curriculum. You can then take this knowledge and apply it to your own school so that you can create a more engaging curriculum for your pupils. So we're going to look at the curriculum design, building the curriculum, and resources to inspire and motivate your students. So in terms of curriculum design, I'm just going to give you a little poll. So in your school, is your curriculum for computing at Key Stage 3 knowledge-led, skills-led, or a mixture of the two? So if you want to add your votes in there for me, please. So the majority of people have voted and 87% of people that have voted have said that their curriculum is a mixture of the two. 9% have said that it's skills-led and 4% have said that it is knowledge-led. So it's quite interesting that the majority of people are doing that mixture of knowledge and skills, and I think that's really important that you are, using a mixture of the two. And there might be, quite different kind of results in how much knowledge and skills people are doing, but I think it is important to get a mixture of both of those things in your curriculum. So in terms of Ofsted, they say that they are looking at how well is the school meeting the needs of all learners to fulfil their potential. So they've obviously kind of changed their framework recently, and they're obviously looking at kind of what you're planning for your curriculum. They're not necessarily looking at individual lessons, but looking at what you're planning and whether you're meeting the needs of all those students and preparing them for the future. So in terms of the topics that we teach at Key Stage 3, I'm just going to give you a couple of polls. I wanted to do this as one big poll, but unfortunately the software doesn't let us. So I'm going to give you 2 small polls. What I want you to do is to choose 2 topics that you think must be taught at Key Stage 3. So ignoring what the national curriculum says, what do you think should be taught? So I want you to choose 2 of e-safety, spreadsheets, databases, binary and networks. Which are the 2 that you think must be taught at Key Stage 3? So majority of votes are in. So databases has been the lowest with 7%. Then we've got networks at 23%, spreadsheets at 33%, binary at 53%, and e-safety at 84%. So e-safety and binary, kind of the 2 there that most people are saying are the most important. So now I'm going to give you a slightly different list of topics. So out of these, which ones do you think must be taught at Key Stage 3? Again, choose 2 of them. We've got programming, input and output devices, office skills, so like presentations, emails, Word documents, etc., or cyber security. So again, choose the 2 that you think must be taught at Key Stage 3. Okay, so most people have voted. So we've got at the bottom end of it, we've got cybersecurity with 22%. We've then got input and output devices at 30%, office skills with 61%, and then programming with 89%. Not surprising at all in terms of what people think should be taught. So once you've kind of thought about what topics that you want to teach within your curriculum, then you obviously need to think about building that and thinking about not only, which topics you're going to be teaching, but an order that you're going to teach them in. Are you going to teach them in a kind of project style, or are you going to do it in a more kind of unit based? So when it comes to building the curriculum, you can obviously think about the transition between Key Stage 2 and Key Stage 3. And one thing that you may or may not have done is had a look at the Key Stage 2 National Curriculum for Computing and looked at what primary schools should have taught. Obviously, when students arrive in Year 7, it can be a very mixed bag in terms of what they have actually experienced in Key Stage 2. But it might be worth having a look at the National Curriculum for Key Stage 2 just to see what is expected of primary schools. It's also important to think about the Key Stage 3 into Key Stage 4. So depending on what your offer is for Key Stage 4 will depend on what you include in your Key Stage 3 curriculum. Obviously, if you have compulsory lessons for all students in Key Stage 4, then things like spreadsheets you might teach at Key Stage 4 and not do too much of in Key Stage 3. If you have an IT-based qualification and a computer science-based qualification for Key Stage 4, that will obviously affect what skills that you're going to teach them in Key Stage 3. Whereas if you only have one or the other of those, then again, that will have an effect on what you're going to offer. So do you plan your curriculum based on what you hope or know they've covered in Key Stage 2? Or do you just kind of choose it based on what you want to cover? So yes, do you do it based on what they should have done in Key Stage 2? No, you don't, or you do it a little bit. Place your votes for me, please.
Becca, just while people are voting,
Yeah.
when you flicked back then from poll to your presentation, we could only see a white screen.
Oh, okay. Once we end this one, I'll see if it works then.
Just so you're aware and we can see what occurs.
Lovely technological issues, don't we just love them? So majority of votes have come in. 23% of people are saying yes, they do it based on Key Stage 2. 38% are saying no, they don't, and 40% are saying they do it a little. So you know, quite a large proportion they're not doing it based on Key Stage 2. So whether that's because you're not aware of what they should be doing at Key Stage 2, or because it is so hit and miss depending on different primary schools. Right, let's try this presentation now then. Hang on, I think there's another poll. Yes, so do you plan your Key Stage 4 subjects, your curriculum for Key Stage 3, based on your Key Stage 4 subjects? Yes, no, or a little bit? This is the last poll for the morning. You may or may not be glad to hear. So most votes have come in. Not surprising by these results at all. 2% say no, they don't base their Key Stage 3 curriculum on their Key Stage 4 subjects. 27% say they do a little bit. 71% saying yes, they do. And that's not surprising at all. There's obviously a massive reason for basing your Key Stage curriculum based on what they're going to be doing in Key Stage 4. Right, let's try this presentation. Carol, can you see the slide, yes or no?
No, I can't. I can see just a white screen.
Okay, let's
Can I just ask anybody to put into the question panel if you can see Becky's presentation? Yeah, while saying blank, Becky, see.
It's blank, right, okay. I will close it and then see if I can share it again.
Thank you.
Don't know why it's decided to do that.
Yeah, Sandra has suggested that if you open the handout, then obviously you can see the slides there. Yeah, it's blank. It's blank when it's being played, but if you just have it up in the outline view, we can see it if that's easier.
Can you see that? I've gone full screen. Can we see that, or shall I go into outline view?
We can see it in outline view at the moment.
Right, I'll stick in outline view. It's not ideal, but it'll have to do.
Yeah, it's fine. We can see it.
That's fine then.
Thanks, everyone.
So, lots of people obviously basing their Key Stage 3 curriculum based on Key Stage 4, which is really important, and that's where it isn't helpful really to, you know, if I said, here's a wonderful Key Stage 3 curriculum that'll cover you for 3 years, go and use it. That is not going to work for every school because it does depend on your Key Stage 4. Obviously, lots of schools are at the moment in the position where they are changing from a 2-year Key Stage 3 back to a 3-year Key Stage 3. So lots of people are trying to think carefully about, you know, what do they do with that extra time? One of the things that you've got to look at is the balance between computer science, information technology, and digital literacy. And obviously those three kind of make up the computing subject as a whole. You've obviously got to also look toward a meaningful sequence. So you've got to kind of plan the kind of the topics that you're doing in an order that makes sense. So that, you know, there wouldn't be much point in doing, you know, one subject if it really needs a basic grounding in another kind of topic beforehand. So once you have a list of topics, you need to think about the flow from each key stage. So that's the flow from key stage 2 to 3, but also the flow from key stage 3 to 4. And also think about the progression. So if you are going to, in a position where you are going to be doing, for example, spreadsheet skills in Key Stage 4, then thinking about what skills would you teach at Key Stage 3 in order for them to progress to Key Stage 4. The same going for things like programming. If they're going to be doing some programming at Key Stage 4, then what programming skills would you want them to have learned in Key Stage 3? The other things that you may need to be aware of is what prior knowledge do students starting GCSE need? And this might not literally just be the GCSE in computer science. This might also be if you've got any other kind of IT-based qualification. What knowledge do they need before they embark on that course? And that's where a lot of your planning for Key Stage 3 can come from. So if you are kind of doing a review of your Key Stage 3 curriculum, then I strongly recommend, just refamiliarising yourself with the Key Stage 4 specifications for your subjects, the qualifications that you offer, and make sure that you're picking out the skills and the knowledge that the students are going to need for the courses that you are offering. So when it comes down to breaking down the subject into its 3 strands, computer science, IT and digital literacy, we can think of them as the fundamentals of computing, the applications of computing and the implications of computing. So some of the core topics that you may wish to consider are computing systems, networks and the internet, data and analysis, algorithms and programming, and impacts of computing. And you may decide to base your scheme of work around those core topics. Now, when it comes to resourcing the curriculum, and especially if you're in the position where you're having to go back to a 3-year Key Stage 3 and all of a sudden you've got to come up with new schemes of work, new units, and you're thinking, I haven't got time to, to be creating new resources as well. I've got a list for you, so this is in the handouts to make things a bit easier, of some resources that you may wish to use to inspire and motivate your students. So the first one is the Teach Computing website, so teachcomputing.org/resources. On this website, there are all sorts of different things, and there's more being added. So if you're looking on there at the moment and you're thinking, oh, well, it's not a full scheme of work for the whole 3 years, there isn't enough there. There is more being added, so do keep checking back. The resources on there, there's a variety of different topics, and it is broken down into each individual year group. But obviously, depending on your students, you may decide to change some of those around into different year groups. Each unit on that website does include lesson plans, a unit overview, it includes your presentation slides, it includes activities for the students, it includes all of your answers. So if you have any non-specialists in your department and they need something ready-made, then all the answers are there as well. It includes assessments and answers for those also. So very well worth having a look on that website and seeing what resources are there, which ones you want to use. And obviously, if you want to use them and then adapt them slightly, then that's perfectly fine. Some other resources that you may wish to look at is AI in schools, barefoot computing, the CAS community resources, obviously on the CAS website, Craig and Dave, CS for Fun, CS Unplugged, MrFraser.org, the Microbit Ideas page, Quick Start Computing and Tenderfoot Computing. So in the handouts, all of those links should take you to those websites so that you can have a look at those in more detail. Because this is a webinar rather than a face-to-face discussion, it's quite difficult to have a discussion in this platform. If anybody has any questions, please do pop them in the questions sort of drop down there, and I'll answer them as best as I can. But I'd strongly suggest that you have a look at those resources, see which ones you want to use, think about which aspects of the curriculum you maybe want to adapt or change. And if you are interested in doing the full version of this course, then again, go to teachcomputing.org and have a look at the CPD section so that you can book onto this course. I don't think it's available to book at the moment. Don't think it's been turned into an online version, but either it will be or it'll be back in the face-to-face version shortly. So only a short session just so that you've got time to go and have a look through those different resources there, because that will obviously take some time. Has anybody got any questions for me?
There's a question in there, Becky, about is there a recommended order of delivery of the topics in Key Stage 3? Would you recommend a different order?
There isn't a specific order, I don't think. I think part of it will depend on your students. So I think if you you know, think about what it is that your students need. A lot of schools start with e-safety, partly because it's obviously a legal requirement that they do that in school. It doesn't have to be done in their computing lessons, but it often is. You know, a sensible thing would be to start with some basic office skills, so that if you are, you know, setting other work, or if they're doing, you know, homework for other subjects, that they have those basic skills. But I think it does depend on your students.
Thanks, Becky. Somebody's just asked a similar question. They're using the NCCE resources and asking about a recommended order. I would just recommend that you also look at the content, because the impact of technology one starts with an introduction of networks, doesn't it? So that might be ideal. We've got a question here about how your Key Stage 3 looks. Here, interested to hear Becky talking through an explanation of what she has done as an experienced teacher. What have you found that works well?
So I think having a mix is really important. You know, we tend to start with e-safety and the basics of, you know, our VLE. So we use Google Classrooms, the basics of how to use that, you know, how to make a basic presentation, how to make, you know, a basic Word document, how to send emails. I think using that as a basis before you move on, I think, is really important. We cover spreadsheets, we cover programming, so we start off in block-based. We tend to use the microbits and do block-based. Obviously, you know, students have a very different experience of Scratch at primary school, so we personally don't use it at my school. We use the microbit, and then we move them on to Python from there. We do cover spreadsheets in all years of Key Stage 3, and just kind of build on the skills each year, partly to keep them fresh in their minds, and then to, you know, to add in some more advanced skills as their ability increases. We cover a little bit of cybersecurity, so we do some like competitions and things. So this is one of the things that the full course kind of goes into in more detail, is how can you kind of create you know, a motivation for students to kind of want to engage in your subject. So things like doing the beverage challenge, which normally takes place in around November time. If you're not aware of that, I'd suggest Googling that. We also use the Cyber First Girls competition. That's usually in about February, March time. So looking at, you know, different ways that you can incorporate some of those things into the curriculum. But again, it does depend on your students. So my students obviously will be very different to yours. You know, in some situations they'll be similar, but in a lot of cases they will be different. So it is mainly about, you know, looking at your students and working out what's best for them and for you and your staff.
Thanks, Becky. Another question in, if that's okay. Somebody's asking about cross-curricular resources that maybe we can ask teachers from other subjects to be involved with.
Yeah, so I don't think that there is anything specific that's been set up in that case, but it might be worth speaking to other STEM subjects. So whether that's maths, science, DT, anything like that, and seeing whether there's, you know, especially in DT, if there's any kind of project-based thing. So one of the things that we do at my school is a competition called Race for the Line. So they will learn in physics about aerodynamics of vehicles. They will learn it in computing about how to program the microbit and the sorts of things the microbit can be used for. In DT, they then design and make a car, and then the students will go out onto the playground, they race the cars, and that's, again, it goes towards a national competition. So other ways that you can kind of get the students involved, do a bit of cross-curricular as well. You know, it may be worth speaking to the maths department and whether they could incorporate a little bit of binary into what they do. You know, it is a binary topic, essentially is just maths. So, you know, you could try and organise a small session with some of your maths teachers to explain that, and I'm sure maths teachers would pick it up very quickly.
Thanks, Becky. Another question in. The challenges of fitting in the Key Stage 3 programme of study with one lesson a week. I think you've answered some of that with the cross-curricular ideas. Have you any advice of the best way to fit the curriculum in one lesson a week?
The one thing that I would say is the NCCE resources are designed around one lesson a week. So each unit is 6 lessons. So it ideally would fit into a half term with 1 lesson a week. And the plan is to have 6 units for each year. So if you are on that, which the majority of people probably are, is that 1 lesson a week, is have a look at them because they are designed in that way. You know, and there might be things that you want to amend slightly, which is perfectly fine, but I would definitely suggest that as a starting point.
Lovely, thank you. Have we got any other questions coming in? Somebody has asked just a technical question about getting the results of the poll, so I'm just going to chase that up because Becky's the first one to use the poll so effectively, I think. So I don't think we've actually had that question before, so if you leave that with me.
The screen briefly, if anybody wants me to do that now.
If you want to do that, I can, well, I can, yeah.
I'll go through them. If anybody wants to, I'll just leave them on the screen for a few seconds if anyone wants to take a quick screenshot or anything.
Brilliant, thank you.
That's the first one.
I'm sure there must be a way for us to do it, but
you would think
this
so.
is a good solution at the moment, isn't it?
For now.
While Becky's doing that, if you do have any more questions, just pop them into the thanks, Simon, I've done the same. If you want to pop them into the question box. While people are doing that, Becky, we've just got a question in, and again, it's another challenge in that somebody has 1 year 8 lesson a fortnight. Any advice?
I think where you have got less than 1 hour a week, I think it is important, you know, if you're the head of department, and if not, then, you know, speak to your head department about trying to arrange a meeting with SLT. You know, this is unlikely to happen for this September, but for next September, about trying to get more hours put on the curriculum. And I think one of the things that lockdown has proved to a lot of people is students do not have basic IT skills. So if you can justify that, you know, in that extra time, you know, across the year, probably from, you know, September 21, whatever school are allowed to kind of give out, that is what some of that extra time can be used for. And if you're devoting some time to, you know, office skills, if you've got more time across the year in general, if you've got more time on office skills, then you can have obviously more time doing the actual kind of computer science and IT side of things rather than the digital literacy side of things. So I think I definitely suggest having a chat with your SLT, and you can always, depending on where you are in the country, you may be entitled to SME support from somebody at the NCCE. So if you go onto the Teach Computing website, if you go into the secondary section, there is a section about SME support, and you can request SME support. And if you're not entitled to it, then somebody will kind of point you in the direction of somewhere else that you can get support from. But anybody who's in a local authority area that's a priority area 5 or 6, you can get half a day's worth of support. So if you've got an SME, it might be worth them kind of, you know, helping you to have a conversation with your SLT about how to increase the time that you've got at Key Stage 3.